What's interesting about the research that we've done is that over and over, we heard workers find it harder to find new opportunities within their organization than it is to find opportunities outside their organization. To us, we reflected and we said, the business economics of that are really off. Organizations should be focused just as much on retaining their current workforce, leveraging that institutional knowledge, and finding other places to deploy that into their business. And that will tap the desires that the worker wants and add value. Right now, businesses are operating under some really complex conditions. One, they have to deliver with agility. Two, they have to have access to a labor force immediately for key projects, key initiatives, and the like. And they really have to be able to tap that internal workforce and move them around just as quickly as they tap the external workforce. No organization has all the skills they need in-house. They absolutely have to be able to look outside for that and combine those skill sets together to really run their business.
I think one of the top reasons that workforce ecosystems are critically important to understand today really goes back to a quote that we're all very familiar with, William Gibson, who said, "The future's already here, it's just unevenly distributed." In the research that we've done on workforce ecosystems, this is certainly true. Companies are operating in a way where they're operating with a workforce ecosystem, connecting internal and external workers. The challenge is that we're not all doing it in an integrated way. Many companies are partially already operating in a workforce ecosystem world. What we need now are the leadership strategies, the business strategies, the integration strategies, the technology enablers, and most certainly the management practices to make this work. And almost every company that we talked to and almost every executive we interviewed, when we asked the initial question, who is your workforce, said to us and reflected with us, that's a very interesting question. And their starting point was, in some way, our workforce is much more than our own employees. We know that now. We know it's our employees, our external workers, including gig workers and freelance workers. And then when we talk to some organizations, including technology organizations, they reminded us that they knew from the very start, when we asked the question, who is your workforce, that their workforce are their employees and their external workers and technology and robots. So it really is this holistic view.
There's a real tension that comes with the way companies conduct work in their enterprises. One of the big tensions is they want flexibility, and workers want flexibility as well. But workers also want security that comes with benefits and consistent pay. They're less likely to get that as external contributors. There are all kinds of people who are external contributors who are in precarious work situations where they're more likely to be laid off in a recession. I mean, that's one of the things that we found out in our research for the book, that people who are external contributors are 5 times more likely to be let go in a recession compared to employees. And if you're building up the number of people who are in that position in your workforce, the entire labor supply has more precariousness in it. What's really interesting is that when we talk about workforce ecosystems, we call them structures, which imply to some people, they're rigid things and it's mechanistic and it's almost scientific in some way. But really, it dovetails nicely with this almost humanistic approach that companies are taking now with their workforce. It's not just like human resources anymore. They're not resources, they're humans.
As we talk about workforce ecosystems, we're starting to think a lot about what does this mean for leaders, especially with workforce ecosystems. These are structures that have both internal contributors and also external contributors. They're complex, they're networked, and so the notion for a leader of having control changes. So where we've talked for many years about leading without authority, this takes on an entirely new level when you have an organization where 30 to 50% of your contributors potentially are not employees. The leaders need to really use purpose, values, mission to gain alignment. They need to pull everyone together in a very different way. And we are seeing leaders talking much more deliberately and intentionally about how this plays out for leadership practices across the organization as the prevalence and relevance of workforce ecosystems increases.